2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello. This is a late Lightforge. Oh my gosh.
Late recording of the Lightforge. So today we have one topic and one topic only. It is the upcoming rotation meta. We actually have two topics. We're probably going to complain a little about what the rotation is doing, but let's set this up and then we'll get right into it. So what happens, if you don't know, if you've been kind of away from Hearthstone for a while and coming back, is Hearthstone Arena is wild right now, but they pick certain sets and they put it in every single meta. It's called the Wild Rotation meta, and they shuffle it around in the middle of each expansion. So like 2 months in, they shuffle things around. And who knows, if they kept doing what they did last time, they'll also like buff a few cards from each class, just to shake up the meta. Which all sounds well and good, except Hearthstone balances Arena. I don't know what kind of manpower, resources, or how much they care about balancing the Arena. But it's slow, it doesn't happen frequently, and if you are a top player, it is not good for you. It is potentially better for average players, because that's what they balance it towards. So that average players get good choices throughout, which means if an average player thinks the card is good, but it really sucks, it's going to be bucketed really high, which means you're never going to be able to take it. Conversely, if an average player thinks a card sucks, but it's really good, like anytime you have to like hurt yourself or sacrifice something, those cards are going to be all under bucketed, and so those cards are going to always dominate the meta in every single meta. It also means that classes that are more complicated, such as Rogue, will always dominate the meta, and classes that are less complicated, like Paladin, will never be like the top choice. Well, not for long, right? Like it may be the top choice for like a week before they nerf it down, because that's just how things are. So this is the world we are in right now. They haven't announced any changes to it. And what are the sets coming in for this next one, besides Saviors of Oldham, which is the new expansion coming?
Sure. When the rotation hits, you guys are going to be playing with basic and classic cards, like always. League of Explorers, Journey to Ungoro, Kobolds and Catacombs, and Rastakhan's Rumble, in addition to the new expansion, Saviors of Oldham. So that's your set of cards right there.
Yeah, so it actually, like, these are all new sets. Not all new in the Arena, but none of them are in the Arena right now. Right now, we're in Rise of the Mechs, and we have a whole different series of sets. And also, on top of that, Rastakhan's Rumble was only in the Arena for, like, 4 months, because that was right before Wild Rotation kicked in, before it got kicked out. So it had seen the least amount of time out of any set in Hearthstone, outside of the current set, Rise of Shadows, which again is rotating out. So you're getting all new sets coming in. So, you know, if you haven't had enough fun in Arena and you long for the days of Overkill's coming back. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you want to share any thoughts about wild rotations and things like that, or you want to jump right into the nitty gritty about what cards are coming into the Arena and how metas are changing?
I think we can just jump right into it, because it really is about the specific sets and specific rotation. Anything you want to say generally, it's like just too high, like up in the air, right? You can talk about sort of the pros and cons of doing it like this, but if we're really gonna help people out preparing for the next set, we really gotta just dig right in there.
Okay. So let's dig right in there. Well, okay. Let me say one more thing before we dig right in. Because otherwise we're going to say it at the end anyway. And that is that the meta is going to get better. So first thing to know about the new meta is that it will be more skillful and better than what the meta you're seeing in the Arena is right now. This is because the meta you're seeing right now is from a whole bunch of old sets that were not very diverse and were not very good at balancing the meta for the Arena, either by class balances or by like archetype balance, honestly. You're just getting this like very narrow band of mid-range. Like you could be slightly faster mid-range, you could be mid-range, or you could be slightly slower mid-range. And, you know, that's what you see in Rise of Mechs. You throw a mech twist into it, and that's what you have right now. And everybody knew that going into Rise of Mechs. That's what happens when you bring back the old sets. That's how the old Arena was. Over the course of the last 2 years, with Ungoro, and then continuing on from that, Arena had transformed into an area where you can do something like on turn 3, right? Your game can start there. You can make real control decks in the arena. You can make real combo decks in the arena. You can still make combo decks in them right now, but you can do just like more stuff, right? The distance between your aggro deck and your control deck is much wider than what you saw in Rise of Mech. So that's all coming back because we're bringing back a whole ton of newer sets. And none of the old sets are coming back, except League of Explorers. That's the oldest set coming back, and it's a tiny, tiny set. So it's not going to influence the meta much. So the first point is that really we're returning to a more like balanced and more diverse meta. And Blizzard doesn't need to do anything about it. It's just going to happen. It's because we have been moved really, really far into this imbalance, no one really cares, kind of like, Fiesta mode, that we're going to come back a little bit onto it. That's not to say I think it's going to be balanced, but that's just going to be an effect of where we're going. I think I predicted at minimum, this was before the wild rotations kicked off, so it was 4 months ago. I predicted a minimum of 3 months of complete crap in the arena when it comes to balance. It's been 4 months, and I thought that the likely amount of time it will take them to balance the arena was 9 months. So, I think everybody kind of saw what Blizzard did and knows that the last 4 months is pretty bad, for top players at least. Or for just good players, not even top players. And hopefully we're going to go into a better place. But the goal is to get back to where we were before wild rotations kicked in, and I don't think that's going to happen in the next 4 months either. But yeah, the one more thing about what's going to help the balance in this next meta is really like something that has nothing to do with wild rotations or not much to do with it, and it's that Rise of Shadows is leaving. So, however much wild rotations was going to screw the meta over anyway, adding ROS at the same time, like, just made it so that the arena never had a chance. Because ROS had some ridiculously overpowered neutrals in Scribe and in Hogsteed. Then Blizzard kept them very under-bucketed. And so you just saw them everywhere, and they dictated the whole entire thing. And it just... The arena never had a chance after that. So the fact that ROS is leaving the meta is a really good sign for balance.
Yeah, it's that's the thing, right? Like it's the combination of the power level of the cards along with the bucketing as well. If Scribe and Hogsteed were bucketed properly and they were put into, first, second buckets, etc., you'd still see them, but they wouldn't be the auto picks. They wouldn't be the, sort of meta setters that they are right now. So that's one of the things that we always have to remember. But at the same time, because I see this comment already in chat. They're like, well, it's like, how do you guys know what the meta is going to be if it is so dependent on the bucket? And you can make statements like, okay, it's going to slow down, it's going to do this and going to do that. The only statements that you really can't make because you are looking at a higher level is like, this is the card that will completely terrorize the meta, right? Like you can't make those statements yet. Like when we saw Scribe, we gave it a really high score and we're just like, okay, this is a really good card. And we sort of predicted, we think that this is a card that they are going to underbucket, but we can't say for certain at that point yet. We're just like,
it was pretty certain.
It was pretty certain, but we can't just say like, yes, like, bet everything on Scribe defining the meta.
It would have been a very good bet because Violet Worm was underbucketed. Everything with Death Rattle, like really large Death Rattles, were underbucketed because people don't like picking those cards. But yeah, like it's pretty certain in some cases. But when it comes to these kinds of metas that we're talking about now, and the meta's rotating in, we're very certain about it because like we already know what buckets these cards are. Right? These aren't new cards. For all of them that we're talking about now. The only ones we don't know is the new expansion. So
yeah, that's what I mean for a lot of them.
Oh, yeah. But we can tell you which cards are going to dominate the meta or not dominate the meta for the new cards. For the old cards that are coming in. And they are going to be the same cards as that were dominating the meta before because Blizzard is probably not moving the buckets, at least not immediately, right? If something's happening, maybe they'll move the buckets in the first rebucketing. Okay. So just to give you a actual scale, right? We all know Hogsteed's powerful. We all know Scribe is powerful. But some people are also like, oh, but Dig Day also super powerful. Dig Day is actually in the correct bucket. So As powerful as it may or may not be, it is not going to ever be a problem in the arena because you're going to have to give up stuff to take Dig Day. It's in a significantly higher bucket than Hogsteed and Scribe. And two, like Hogsteed and Scribe are just so much better of cards. They're not even on the same level as Dig Day. Like if you look at Hogsteed, it's a 142 right now on our neutral tier list, and a Scribe is a 139. The way the current tier list is set up, I'll tell you right now that both of those scores are above Fungalmancer. They're above Primordial Drake. They are like the very, very top end of what neutrals had been. Like they're not very far from Primordial Drake or Fungalmancer. But they're the very top end of what neutrals were allowed to be in terms of power level. So, yeah, we're bringing Ungoro back. Ungoro had a whole lot of unbalanced neutrals as well. But those were not bucketed correctly either. Primordial Drake was. But a lot of the other ones, like, you're all going to see a lot of Gastropods again, because Gastropod is heavily underbucketed and presumably will remain so. You're going to see a lot of what's the other one? The 2/2 stealth one. It's not a Gastropod, but Wasp. You're going to see Wasps again because it's underbucketed. Like, these things are coming back. But the level of offensiveness that Scribe and Hogsteed had wrecked on this meta it just had not been seen before without them actually going in and nerfing a card. Like, the last one that I could think of that did anything like it was like Giggling Inventor. But then they nerfed the card because it was just so overpowered.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're getting rid of Rise of Shadows is just going to improve things a whole lot more. Assuming the same problem doesn't happen with Saviors. We still don't know what ridiculous Savior cards they're going to misbucket.
I was gonna say, like, you could have ridiculously good neutral cards that are just fair cards, right? But not supremely OP by themselves, so that they'll never see play in Constructed, and therefore, no one really cares about them.
Yeah. Oh god, Basilisk.
Yeah,
I forgot about Basilisk.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could have just something like a Basilisk, or just Scribe 2.0, Hogsteed 2.0, in which it's just definitely not powerful enough to see play in Constructed, but terrorizes and completely sets the tone in the arena.
Yep,
could happen. Yeah.
So that's yeah. I mean, things are going to be overall more balanced because we're at the pits, but we'll see just how much more balanced it becomes. Okay. So the next point that in the big picture that I think is going to happen in the next meta is the following cards are coming back, and they're going to make a huge difference. We talked about Primordial Drake. If you are new to the arena, like really new, and you haven't seen Primordial Drake, it's 8 mana for 8 taunt, deal 2 damage to everything on the board. So super control card. You got to get to turn 8, but once you get to turn 8, it ruins your day. What else is coming back is Dragon Maul Scorcher, which is a 3/6, deal 1 damage to everything, but it's only 5 mana. So again, another really powerful card that is a very control-oriented card.
Imagine how good Scorcher would be in this meta.
Oh my god. Gosh. Yeah, so the fact that a lot of things are leaving the meta is actually going to make Scorcher and Primordial Drake a lot more balanced. Like, it's going to be much less tokeny than it is now. The other 2 cards that are coming in that's going to allow control to really be a thing in neutral is Lone Champ and Tar Creeper. Like, 3 mana's back. You don't need 2s anymore. You can start on 3. You got your Lone Champs, you got your Tar Creepers, you got a few more 3/4s in. And yeah, it's going to be viable again. It's not going to be necessary. 2 drops are still going to be very good. I think it's I think it's going to be a good meta between the 2s and the 3s. Like, if you really wanted to play control, you can start on 3, and you won't just, like, your deck won't just be, like, non-functional like in this meta. But you will definitely get a lot of benefit for starting in 2 as well, in exchange for losing the card advantage.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely go back to the meta's going to become more polarized than it is now. Just because right now it is not polarized at all. Like, we are super clumped up in the middle, and the differences are really, really, really small. Like you can feel the differences definitely, but it's like ADWCTA says, it's like you're either fast mid range or slower mid range. You can't really do anything like too crazy there. A few classes you can play like control kind of these days, but not true control. Like if you want to play priest after the rotation, you can play true
Oh
control
God.
because of how much AoE they have. And if you want to play,
So
which
so the priest AoE is coming in, by the way.
oh yeah,
Psychic Scream, Excavated Evil. Is that it? Those are the two I remember.
oh that's coming back.
Yeah, Entomb is coming back. Mass
Yeah,
Hysteria, that's the other
Mass
big one that's
Hysteria is
coming
coming
back.
back, and they have that new card, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
they're going to have
the plague.
the plague that destroys everything, like the Twisting Nether for 9.
Yep.
So yeah, like you're going to be able to go very control with Priest.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty painful. It's gonna be really, really painful. And of course that they're gonna have elixirs back again. So it's just like, oh, random unidentified elixir. What's it gonna be?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's and the priest isn't the only one. You're gonna see shamans with a lot of their control cards back. Warlock can already do control, and so it's not good. It's not like they're losing anything. Warlocks, I think, just naturally can always do control in the arena based on their classic set. Your mages are going to get meteor back, blast wave back. Like these are the big things, right? These are the things that this meta just does not have. Warriors, I don't know how good warriors are going to be in control. It's going to be interesting, but they are getting back the dragon card, the dragon roar. That
Dragon
was
Roar?
so
Yeah.
instrumental in creating these like large warriors, and they're going to get some of their big taunts back, right? So that's my next point is that big taunts are coming back. And not just in Warrior. Warrior gets Ornery Direhorn, Gem-Studded Golem. You're thinking of these cards, and you're like, okay, yeah, these are pretty bad in terms of big taunts. But your neutrals are where it's really at, right? They're not terribly great cards, but they allow you to play control if you draft one or two of them and to like stabilize on the board. Like I'm talking about Sleepy Dragon, 9 mana, 12 health. Mammoth, 9 mana, 10 health. Mashag Enforcer, 8 mana, 14 health plus a Divine Shield. Like,
Oof.
these are all neutral. Volcanosaur, which you could probably end up discovering a taunt on. And that has 7 health plus potentially Divine Shield or potentially 3 more health. Amani Warbear, 7 mana, 7 health with Rush. Like,
I wish I had charge, God.
so all of these they're coming back. And they're all going to slow down the meta and allow late game decks to recover even in the arena. I think Warbear aside, none of the other ones are like super good, but they are functional if you have the archetype.
Yeah, that's something that people have not really been exposed to in this meta. The biggest taunt these days is Sunwalker or Safeguard. And
Mm-hmm.
Safeguard is really the largest taunt, right?
Yep.
That's really the biggest taunt that you will see played with a decent amount of frequency in the arena these days, which is okay. But if that's the biggest taunt, and then suddenly you're going to see a decent amount of Mashag Enforcers, Mastodons, Sleepy Dragons, and like tons and tons of Warbears. Warbear is going to be something that you need to be prepared for on turn 7. So yeah, like it makes such a huge difference if you are thinking of trading or if you're thinking of just deck composition and whether or not you can get there. It's like you better kill them by sort of turn 7, turn 8. Otherwise, everyone's gonna start taunting up one way or the other.
Yep. There's also like we talked about 2-drops. There's going to be enough 2-drops if you want to go 2-drops. So I don't want people to think like, oh, it's all going to be a control meta. If you want to go 2-drops, there's plenty of 2-drops. This is not a meta star for 2-drops. it's not a meta with like a ton of it, but you're not going like I remember which meta was it? I want to say it was the Boomsday meta. I think after Boomsday, like even if you wanted to draft a curve, you couldn't half the time, even in the bucket system.
Basically, just the pre-rotation meta essentially during that time. It was just really tough to draft twos.
Yeah,
like it was just really really tough. You can call it just a sort of rotational meta.
Okay.
Because they just weren't printing that stuff. And
the card pools got so big that it was diluting the old card pools, and they had like offering bonuses and stuff.
And if you wanted them, you had to pay a little bit of a premium because of the way that the bucketing worked. People were picking them, so you had to give up some decent amount of value, which is why people just gave up on twos and just picked 3 mana 3/4s and just curve started on 3s. Yep. And you were just okay with that.
Yeah. So we're not returning to that area, mostly because the pool is still small. What you do, like one thing that we weren't sure was going to happen is when Saviors came out, were they going to add an extra set into the pool, like what normally happens, right? Normally, if you're talking about like standard, for example, you start out with the 3 sets from the year before, classic, basic, and then you add sets. You never take them away, and then you rotate at the end of the year. So if we're following that model, you would just add an extra set in each of the years, even if you're shuffling them because you're a wild rotation thing. You're not doing actual standard. But they didn't do that. They kept the same number of sets, which means roughly the same number of cards are in the arena at all times. Which means that your key sets that anchor your 2-drops, like Ungoro, for example, will not be diluted as much. This set is going to feel very Ungoro, like at the end of the day, because Ungoro had all the best neutral cards. And yeah, one more interesting thing is we are losing mechs, of course, because there's no Boomsday, no GVG, but we're getting dragons back. We were talking about Dragon Maul and Pedre. They're going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're also getting, in addition to dragons back, Dragon Slayer is also coming back.
I know. Such a skillful card. God damn it.
So if you like dragons, it's a good time for you. You should be excited about this, because right now there's not that many dragons in the meta. But they will be an element returning to the arena. If you dislike dragons and the swings that they generally provide, then you're not going to be as happy. But I think if you dislike swings, I don't know. Moving on from the dragons, though, there's one thing that I've noticed about this new the card sets that's coming in. So this is why it's gonna feel so different for so many reasons from Rise of Mechs. But I think a more subtle way that it's gonna feel different, that I don't know if people have picked up on yet, is back in the old days, your power turns are 2 and then 4. Right? Those are where your high value cards are. Your 3s are not as good and your 5s are not as good.
When you say back in the day, this is way back in the day.
Well, this is Rise of the Mechs, right? Because Rise of the Mechs is back in the day. Like, we're currently in the meta that is back in the day. So when I say back in the day, I mean way back in the day, also right now for the last 2 months. What we're moving into is this, I don't think it's all modern sets. I think it's just these specific sets that they selected. And I'm sure they didn't think too much about it. But the 2-drops are okay, but the 3-drops are really, they got some standouts. You got your Basilisk, your Egg Napper, your Stonehill Defenders, like, there's not a lot to compete with that on the 2-drop side. And there's not a lot to compete with that on the 4-drop side. Like, for neutrals, by far your best 4-drop is Ticket Scalper, which is great and all, but it's not a curve card at all, right? Like, it's an anti-curve card. It draws you cards. And then it flips again, where for 5-drops, you have a lot of really insanely good 5-drops. Like, if you just want a standard 5-drop, like, Nesting Rock is coming back, right? A Bittertide Hydra is coming back. Former Champ is coming back. These are all above curve 5-drops. Moshag Announcer. And if you want 5-drops that actually like do stuff, like Fungomancer, Dragon Maul Scorcher, Carnivorous Cube, there's just so many things that's happening on turn 5. That's really where the game is gonna turn and swing. It's going to be the power turn. I think that determines a lot of arena games.
Yeah, we saw this a lot, right? Where during the pre-rotation meta, the game starts on 3. Literally, like no one did anything before turn 3. The game starts on 3. Turn 4, you have like a decent play, and then turn 5, yeah, that's when the power really comes out. Like at the very least, you would expect something like a former champ, which is 5 mana for 6/6 worth of stats, and people would play nesting rocks. If they could get fungal mancer on 2 minions, sometimes even just 1 minion, and it would just be GG. So yeah, that was how it used to be, and I'm super excited about this. You know why I'm super excited about this? Because that means aggro can come back.
Yes. If the power turn's not until 5, you have 4 turns of pounding your opponent.
So, guys, here is exactly the thing, and you can rewind like all the way back, and basically what, because here's what I said, like before this meta, right? Like before Rise of the Mechs, it's like aggro hunter. There's always a spot for it if it is able to get distance from the other decks. It's all about relative distance, because it doesn't really matter what the speed is of the other decks. It's about the relative separation that the aggro hunter can get on the other decks. So if all the decks are either pretty like fast or kind of fast, but not really fast, aggro hunter can still find a really good place if it can go super duper duper ultra fast, but it can't do that right now. That's the problem. Like right now, I can't really advocate for super aggro hunter because you just can't get there. You can't get enough tempo separation and enough of a snowball head start on the other decks, especially rogues. Like, there's no way.
It's possible. I got a 12-win aggro hunter.
It's possible.
It's on YouTube right now. You guys can look at it.
It's possible, but it's not going to be that consistent.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent. Yeah. It's more inconsistent that like you just, especially with the card pool in Rise of the Mechs for Hunter, and also Rise of Shadows before that. It's just all control favored. Every time I see a mech in the arena right now, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to face the most control deck in the arena right now.
So I already see people in the chat doubting. They're gonna be like, because I know what they're thinking. They're like, wait, you just talked about Tar Creepers, you talked about Lone Champs, you talked about, and then all these AoE and large taunts. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That is the perfect meta. When people start feeling safe, that is when the aggro hunter strikes. No, it's that is exactly it. Because here's what's gonna happen. And look, obviously, I don't know Saviors of Oldham. They could also totally rebucket everything. But here's how the meta generally
2/8 taunt for 3 mana.
I know. Here's how the meta generally trends when something like this happens. People are able to play control. People do play control.
Mm-hmm.
Control is pretty good. And then a lot more people play control. They need separation from the other control decks. That's the thing. If you're playing control, you need separation from the mid-range decks, and you need greater separation from the other people playing control. So those priests, right? Like those priests and those potentially warriors, but they don't have Warpath anymore. So that's like they're missing a huge tool there.
Mm-hmm. They do have Soltharaz. They don't have a Collider either anymore.
They don't have
Soltharaz is here.
I know. And it really was all like the whole entire package.
Yeah, it was the whole package. That's why I'm like, I see all these good things coming, all these scary things coming back for Warrior, but it's just not gonna come together. That was the perfect storm. That really was the perfect storm.
The perfect storm. They had everything. And now they don't. But control should be viable again. And if you're playing control, you want to get separation from the other control decks. And by doing that, it's gonna pull everyone like really far, which gives a lot of separation for aggro hunters to really go under everyone. Because if you're playing an aggro hunter and you're just slightly going under everyone, which is what you would be doing now, right? You can get under them, but only slightly. And then you are really walking that tightrope. It's like that last thread on that tightrope. It's a pretty dangerous play style. But if you have all of this separation, if you have this arms race going on with these control decks, you can really slide under these decks and
And, and
just kill them.
here's the thing: the control decks don't care that you kill them because the control decks are going to see very few super aggro decks because it's really hard to make a functional super aggro deck and it's really hard to play super aggro decks. So they're going to be like, yeah, you know, in my run, I see 2 aggro decks, I lose to them 75% of the time, but I'm beating the control decks by a lot more by going more control. And so it's going to be like, that's how metas form, right? Like everybody has all their incentives and it lines up so that X beats Y beats Z, and etc. And yeah, like Tar Creeper is going to slow down aggro. What really stops aggro is your stuff like your mage pings and things like that. Like the mage 1 mana, deal 1 damage to a minion, deal 1 damage to the 2 minions adjacent to it. Like that's the stuff that kills aggro. None of that's here anymore. Your mage's ability to stop aggro is now like Blast Wave. That's a 5 mana consecration as far as aggro cares. Like it's not your priest, same thing, right? How do you stop aggro as a priest? Holy Nova, Mass Hysteria. That's a 5 mana clear. It's pretty slow at that point. Although for priest, it can always heal itself, so it's got that going for it.
I think people are forgetting. It's like when I made the video for Aggro Hunter, when I was like just wrecking people with Aggro Hunter, these cards were in the meta. Tar Creepers, Lone Champions, Scorchers, like Warpaths, and all of this stuff. They were in the meta. Like because people have these things, they feel safer. So therefore, they draft in a much more greedy fashion. And what ends up happening is like, it doesn't even matter, right? It's like I had this conversation with it's like Shady and Collins, and then we joke around, but there's a lot of truth in it. I was like, you know, like my deck would beat your deck every single time, right? They're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like we face one of your decks maybe once every 4 runs, maybe like something that, you know, they face hunters more often, but they won't face something of that speed. So like they are basically just concerned with this arms race at the very end, and then I just go under everyone, and you can too, assuming that things pan out. But
or you can play mid-range regardless of the meta and get good results regardless.
Don't do that.
My win rate's as high as anyone's, and I never change. The meta changes. I know how the meta changes, but I make my decks very similarly. Because why change? Why change when it doesn't bring you a very significant edge? I think a lot of the things get exaggerated in terms of like what gets like actually like killing the meta or whatever. Like when I'm drafting Hunter, for example, I'll try to draft aggro, but I'm gonna go back to mid range when it doesn't pan out, like in the draft. I'm not.
It always pans out, man.
It doesn't. It always pans out. It pans out like half the time.
Believe.
Okay, but to Merps' point, when it comes to actually it panning out for Hunter's getting some good tools back. Headhunter's Hatchet is the 2-drop weapon, right? It's no Glaivezooka, but it gets the job done. Crackling Razor Mauls, one of the early Hunter Super Temple things. It's a 2-mana 3/2 that just adapts a friendly beast, like pure bonus. It's pretty insane.
Oh yeah. And Spring Paw and Candle Shot.
Spring Paw and Candle Shot are coming back.
Jeweled McCall.
Okay, Jeweled McCall is not like that amazing for aggro.
Dude, people don't pick it. I pick it, and it's just like you just need that thing on turn 1. Yep. Okay,
no, it's true.
You just need that thing on turn 1. That's it.
You go later, and you have this is the difference between Merp saying super aggro Merps Hunter and my saying like, oh, I play a faster mid range Hunter. Like I think that's where most people play Hunter. And it's like baited arrow. You get to turn 5. Do you take the baited arrow? I'm like, baited arrow is great. You deal 3 damage, which can go face if you're that fast. But if it doesn't, you're dealing 2 damage and summoning a 5/5. Like it's an amazing card. Okay. So you've slowed down a bit because you used to be very much no baited arrow too slow.
Well, no, because it was essentially I forgot what they changed with the Hunter, like they like rebucketed or did. Remember when they like did something with the hunter? Like after that, I was just like, okay, well, I'll take baited arrow. I
I think
forgot
they
what they
just
changed.
nerfed Hunter.
I think they did, but I don't remember exactly when it was. But yeah, it was like
Uh-huh.
after they changed it somehow, like rebucketed or micro adjusted.
Uh-huh.
That's when I began taking beta arrow because I needed that little bit of extra reach.
Okay. And
Yeah.
unless you just keep listening to Merps, who talks about Hunter every chance he gets, you can be aggro with all sorts of classes.
Uh,
Um, so, like, one of the good parts about going back to Rise of the Mechs for so long, like 2 months of, like, really a subpar meta overall in terms of balance and, like, skill, but potentially a high one in terms of fun, it's really that, in terms of learning the game, it introduced a whole generation of players, like a whole generation of players who had never had to deal with this kind of meta to the basic Hearthstone principles of like Hearthstone and how things work and how aggro works. Because you gotta know how to start on two. You gotta know like sort of how to play aggro because your deck is gonna swing aggro sometimes in this meta, and people are gonna start applying that back into this normal meta that we're going back into. And so it's not going to just be Hunter. It's going to be like Warlock, for example. The big, hugely misbucketed card from Warlock that's coming back is Demon Bolt. I used to have like a 10 win per run like average for Warlock in Rastakhan. Why? You just take every single Demon Bolt, you play Zoo like, you make sure you get enough stuff on the board. Okay, Demon Bolt's not going to be as good as it was before because you've lost a lot of the tokens that are not coming back because they were Boomsday. But still, it's going to be insanely underbucketed, and that's going to drive a aggressive, aggro control kind of strategy pushing forward. Not that I think like don't get me wrong. I think Warlock's going to be kind of weak. Not a lot of good cards are coming for Warlock, but
no,
Demon Bolt
definitely
is
not.
hugely underbucketed, and so that will drive probably the entire Warlock archetype outside of Savior cards. So Saviors for Warlock was probably going to have some. I'm just guessing on that now, but it's probably going to have some good control cards. It's Warlock. You destroy everything. It's an evil class in Saviors of Alderman. So that probably fits. And Warlocks are getting Void Lord back, which helps that whole like control thing. So I think
Ugh.
it can potentially be diverse, but it's a lot's riding on Saviors. If you're looking at other aggro classes, we just did a Paladin run in the Arena Coupe, and you can go check it out. Oh, by the way, if you're listening to this Lightforge and you don't normally watch the Arena Coupe, we did the Arena Coupe before the Lightforge this week. Go watch that freaking Arena Coupe. That's one of the most fun Arena Coupes we've done in a while, just because of the deck and the things that have happened. Just watch it. Like it's good.
Hanzo.
Okay, so Paladins are going to be in a very good spot to go aggro. You've seen how
Real
Paladin
good.
goes aggro now, right? Like they're losing, muster for battle and things like that, but they have Blood Claw coming back. Yes, it's super underbucketed, which like it's too underbucketed. It's
You
so
don't see
underbucketed,
it.
you don't get offered it anymore because they put it in the freaking seventh bucket. But it means you get good value on it when you can take it. Um, what else is a
Lost in the
hydrologist?
jungle.
Oh yeah,
So
Lost in the Jungle
so
just to
you
start
can.
off.
Yeah, this is the thing. Your curve can be really good. You can start off with Lost in the Jungle or a Blood Claw. You can follow it up with Hydrologist, right? And you also have
Hmm.
Potion of Heroism
Yep.
that comes back. Just a good card. We talked about on 3, you have all those powerful cards, and then on 4, you have your good cards, but you also got Keeper of Oldemon now.
Which is the better than your good cards card.
Yeah, I know. It's
I
disgusting.
I hope,
What?
I think
What?
they're gonna
Yeah,
put
what do
it.
you think they're gonna bucket this?
This is a card that's really like this is not Murloc like so by the way I talk a lot of like shit about Blizzard and their abilities and knowing what the hell's going on in the arena, but they nailed Murloc Knight. And when I saw their rating of when I saw their bucketing of Murloc Knight when it came back, I'm like, good, this is now going to be a usable card in the correct bucket. I so
Yep.
thought they were going to heavily over bucket it because it was so dominant for a while. But Keeper of Oldemon's not like that. Keeper of Oldemon was dominant back then. It will still be dominant now. It is like ridiculous. It's going to be the best card in Paladin when it comes back, like the best non-legendary card.
It's so stupid.
So I'm really hoping it gets in that 0.5 bucket where it gets seen half as often as your like True Silvers and Blessing of Kings and Consecrations.
It's so stupid. It gives Paladin something they should never. Anyways, I'm gonna
If
stop.
you don't remember Keeper of Oldemon, it is from League of Explorers, 4 mana, 3/4 battle cry. Set a minion's attack and health to 3. Which sounds innocuous. You're like, oh, that's still a lot of stats.
No, it doesn't sound innocuous.
Fine. But your 3/4 matches up perfectly to that 3/3, and if you have stuff on the board as a paladin you normally do, you get to be the one to trade into it. It's pretty ridiculous.
It's busted. Yeah.
Okay.
It's busted levels of good. But anyways, Paladins have a really good curve now, and they have a lot of options. And then on 5, with all of these good neutral, like Paladin doesn't have like that many great 5-mana cards, but you don't need it because you have the Fungals, or the Fungalmancers, you have the Form Champs, the Scorchers, etc., etc. And then once again, we have Steed back. Right, we have Spike Ridge
Steed, but more importantly, Vine Cleaver.
Yeah,
Vine Cleaver is coming back. That is the super dominant card. At least Silver Sword is not coming back with it, so we get a little respite from Silver Sword. But Vine Cleaver is coming back. Dino Size is coming back. You got some options as Paladin. Earlier on, Unidentified Maul is coming back. These are all Paladin stuff to support. Not as aggressive as Merps would like, but still a pretty aggressive class overall. As
the curve
Paladin
is now
usually is.
Pretty smooth for Paladin. That was one of the problems with this meta. It's like Paladin has the good cards, right? They have the muster, they have the seals, they have all the stuff, but the curve a lot of the times just didn't feel as smooth, right? And once this rotation comes back, like Angora was really the set that gave Paladins powerful tools in the early and the late game, right? It's like you have your Lost in Jungles, you have your Hydrologist, but you also have the Steed and the Vine Cleaver. And then, you're getting all that back. You're getting powerful 3s and 5s from the neutral cards, which Paladins didn't get in the set. And then on 4, you're getting one of their most powerful cards of all time in Keeper of Oldemon. So it's just like, really, the stars are lining up for Paladins to be really good.
Yeah. So the stars are lining up for Hunter, for Paladin, for Priest, and this is nothing to do with Saviors, right? We'll do an analysis of Saviors when we know all the cards of Saviors. But just this is the setting in which Saviors is going to step into, and it's going to be a powerful Hunter, a powerful Paladin, a powerful Priest, a weird warrior that I'm not sure it's gonna work too well. A really weak shaman. Like shaman has nothing coming back.
Yeah.
Like Reign of Toads. It's pretty bad when Reign of Toads is your big ticket.
Yeah.
Like what was it? Like they get Crushing Hand back, I guess.
They have the only redeeming thing is Unstable Evolution.
Yes, Unstable Evolution is coming back. But that's an epic card, too.
It's an epic card, and if you look at the ways that they can potentially get onto the board versus all of these other ways, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Shaman is really getting nothing back. It's
going to have to run on Saviors. So we'll see if Saviors is enough to carry Shaman.
They have to run on Saviors and huge amounts of micro adjustments.
Yeah.
They have to adjust Shamans up significantly. Just like every other pick, give them either a first or second bucket pick.
And they won't. Because Shamans are one of the classes that usually average players do a little better at than top players. Because of all the RNG and stuff. And so it's just not... Anyway, so we talked about Warlock and how it's kind of mixed. Like, just Demon Bolt itself is anchoring so much of it. Dark Peddler's coming back, like Vulgar Homunculus, Kobold Librarian. Like, you have some support. It's nothing that's too scary. But Demon Bolt anchors the whole thing, so it can be dominant if the Saviors come in. Just like in Warriors have enough random pieces that are just powerful, but it doesn't work together. So if Saviors comes in and gives Warrior good like archetypes, it's going to make an impact. Shaman's just screwed. Druid is kind of middle of the road to get some stuff back. I can't even like what's good here. Like Mounted Raptor is pretty good. Mark of the Loa is pretty good. Living Mana is pretty good. Ironhide Direhorn, like it's fine, right?
Like,
mid range.
It's okay. Yeah.
Like what? You're not like excited about any of this, but you're like also not terrified like if you're a shaman player.
Token Druid. If you are just spamming Druid these days and consistently drafting Token Druid, that's dead. You will no longer be able to get Token Druid. You can play a faster mid-rangey style, and then
Yep.
capitalize off of it with like Fungal Mancers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can still draft the power of the wilds, but you're not going to be able to consistently get these actual token druids that you are able to draft these days. You
Yeah.
have to play some sort of mid range.
Yep. And unless you wonder, oh, is Druid getting any of their, cards like, oh, well, why am I blanking on this? The 10 mana card that draws a lot of card, heals yourself, puts a 5/5 on the
Ultimate
board?
Infestation.
Yeah, I blocked that out of my mind. They're not getting Ultimate Infestation back. They're not getting any board clears like in this rotation back. So it's really just very mid rangey. Which is where I like Druid. Druid is always underrated in my opinion. So I put that somewhere in the middle. Um, so we've now talked about all the classes. Anything else in particular? Oh, right, Rogue. Let's talk a little about Rogue. Um, well, before we talk about Rogue, I'm going to go back to Mage for a little bit because Mage has Blast Wave, which allows you to play Control, Meteor, which allows you to play Control, but it also gets back Explosive Runes. So Mage is going to be in that nice, like, diverse spot where it can do a whole lot of different things and you're really scared of it. Its overall power level, I think, is kind of under control. It's very Druid-like, but rather than Druid, which is focused on mid-range, most of the Mage power is, like, spread out. Um, Mages also have a whole bunch of elemental synergies with the elementals coming back. So it's going to be, I think, one of the most interesting classes to play and to draft because there's a lot of things going on there, but not like a hunter, paladin, priest kind of like well synergizedness. Um, so let's end the class by class discussion on the only class that you should care about forever from now until whenever they actually change how wild rotation works or how bucketing works or how class adjust works or something, right? So because class adjusts are done by average stats and because Rogue will always be the most difficult class to play, like just on the early turns and in the mulligan, like you could just screw up in so many different ways. Rogue will always be, and because Rogue has a hero power that's just always naturally best in the arena, Rogue will pretty much be a top class, if not an overpowered class, for all the rest of the metas, unless they change their balance philosophy. So let's look at what Rogue is getting back. You guys have, if you're listening to this, you've been in the arena for the last like couple metas, Rogue's been just dominant in the arena ever since they went to wild rotation. And that's not going to change until they change the philosophy. And if you're thinking, oh, that's because Rogue has all these like great cards, like there's an evil miscreant, right? Like that's like hugely like great. Like no, Rogues kill me all the time never playing a miscreant. They have like reduced the offering rate of miscreants enough that it is not the reason Rogues are dominant. Rogues are dominant because they have a hero power and they are able to remove everything. And they're able to draw cards afterwards. And they can they can do everything. Okay. So bad news. The wrapper, the setting, this meta that we're coming in before Saviors is really good for Rogue. Rogues are getting Vile Spine Slayer back. That card shouldn't exist.
Yeah, they're getting Vile Spine Slayer. They're getting some like decent reload as well, right?
They're getting Elven Minstrel. That's a good reload. You can reload like reasonably while still keeping tempo. They're getting Walk the Plank. So remember, the meta is going to change to a little more control. You're going to have a little more like larger targets and a little more consistently that you're going to need to remove. And a lot of these large targets, like Sleepy Dragons, like your Mammoths or whatever, they're going to be taunts. So you're going to want to be able to remove those no matter what your archetype is. And Rogues can do that in spades.
Yeah, that's always the thing. It's like the value of something like a Walk the Plank or an Assassinate. If Walk the Plank were in the meta right now, I'd just be like, it's okay. It's like, it's all right. Just because that's not really what the meta these days is about. But you are definitely going to be killing those Sleepy Dragons. You're going to be killing Mastodons because games are going to last a little bit longer. And even as a rogue, you're going to be okay getting there, because it's going to be less about you flooding out and then putting consistent pressure on your opponents versus you keeping up, and then at some point they have to play one of those things, and then you either sap or Volspine Slayer or kidnap that thing, and then you push, and then you win off of that. So
Yeah.
rogues are going to be able to put a lot of pressure on them, because when I play against a rogue, lots of the times I'm just like, oh god, it's like if I do this, I lose hard. If I do this, I could also lose hard. It's like, which one am I, more afraid of losing hard to? And then it's just really difficult. Like you necessarily sort of have to box yourself into these what you might think are suboptimal plays to just not lose hard, and then you have to do these risk calculations. It's really annoying.
Too much thinking. I
Too
just
much
let
thinking.
myself get owned by rogue, unless they don't have it, which they usually do. But if they don't, then I can win without having thinking too much, and
Yeah, okay.
that's good enough for me. Venom weapons also coming back, a little less good hard removal, but just to let you know, the rogues can hard remove anything off the board, a pit snake even, right, with the poison.
They also have one of the most frustrating cards ever printed in Faldori Strider.
Yes, but it's bucketed very high.
It is bucketed really high.
So
People still pick it though.
yeah, I mean, I find myself picking it sometimes when you need a 4-drop.
I know,
But
me
just
too.
systemically, like when the meta moves to be a little slower, rogues benefit from it because they have that hero power that can function as a 2-drop, whereas no other class has that, so that they could start on 3 very easily and get all the card advantage from that without even the Elven Minstrel, right? And they can invest in 1-drops because they can get their card advantage back on the other end. And they have, like, with all the good 3-drops, they have Unearthed Raptor on top of that. That's a solid 3/4 with upside. It's gonna be bad. If you're thinking, like, oh, maybe after 2 months, Rogue will be worse, you don't even know what the next rotation coming in is, right? Like, how do you know Rogue is just gonna keep dominating? Well, besides all the stuff that we were talking about before, in which Blizzard's philosophy is basically make Rogue overpowered when it comes to the arena and how they do class adjust and bucketing. But even beyond that, Blackrock Mountain is the only set that has yet to make an appearance, so it's almost guaranteed to come back in 2 months after, like, in the next rotation.
Yeah.
And we all remember Blackrock Mountain for one thing and one thing only. No, it's not dragons. It's Dark Iron Skulker.
Iron Skulker. Oh man, why did they make that card? It is the antithesis of Rogue's identity. I don't know. It was a young and dark time for Blizzard, and then they never made something like that ever again.
Yeah, it's not even just bad identity. It's also just like it's one of the most
Way
powerful
too
cards
freaking
ever
good.
printed. Like, it's on the level
Yeah.
of Sap. Sap should not exist. Like, you think Volspine Slayer is, like, powerful? No, Volspine Slayer is still not better than Sap. Like,
Yeah.
that's how powerful freaking Sap is. Okay. I think we covered all the classes. We covered the neutral cards. This is the setting we're coming into. It is interesting when you do a wild rotation set, and that you have all this, like, stuff that you can set up in your mind. That you kind of have to, because if you're going to try to plug saviors into the meta that you know now from the Rise of the Mechs, well, none of the cards are going to be there, so it's going to be a totally different meta. Like, you can't think at all that the meta will retain any element of the current meta outside of classic and basic cards, because it literally will not retain any of those cards. So yeah, fresh arena coming up whenever Saviors releases. They've released 30 something Saviors cards, but like half of them are not going to be in the arena because they have something to do with like quests or whatever. So we're still waiting. Not 100% sure where Saviors is going to end up. But yeah, let's focus back in on this rotation thing. Anything else you want to talk about this rotation? Any card that we skipped that, like, we should probably talk about?
Not really. I don't think we should get into anything too specific. We can always talk about kind of like, oh, these are these are cards that you need to look out for, or in previous metas, these were things that were really dominating. But Saviors of Oldham could make a huge impact, and then they could shift something such that, like, by the ripple effect, whatever we want to talk about isn't as applicable. So I think this is good. We've touched upon a lot of cards that I want to say, no matter what, are going to make an impact on the meta. And then we can just leave it there and see what Saviors of Oldham kind of does with this next rotation.
Sounds good. So we are going to be back next week for the Lightforge, and we will have we'll just talk generally about our favorite Saviors of Oldham cards that have been released or revealed before the week after that, which is the large Lightforge for the card valuation on our tier list. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I will say that I am very excited to be getting out of the Rise of the Mechs meta.
Yeah, me too.
It's 2 months was too long. This felt like Wildfest for some reason because of all the old sets, and it's just dragging to be too long.
See, the problem with this is like these sets, it really killed any sort of creativity, right? Like there's no creativity with this rotation. You really are just shoehorned into a certain play style. The only thing that you can do to try to be like creative is to sort of commit to mechs early game. And by early, I mean early on in the draft. Right. You could do that, you could take that risk because it's not really a huge risk, but then you're just doing this sort of gimmicky mech thing and it's not anything like special. Everyone sort of does it.
Yep.
That's kind of it. It's like you either play safe mid-range or you play mech mid-range.
Or you play slightly fast mid-range and lose more often than you win, or you play slightly slow mid-range and then don't curve out and lose more than you win. And it's like,
that's basically it. And for even ADWCTA, like who loves mid-range and just like feasts off of like,
yeah, because people like wonder, they're like, oh, you shit on this meta so much, like what's your win rate? And I'm like, my win rate has like not been higher in like recent memory than Rise of the Mechs after the first 2 weeks when I like adjusted back. Because this is my wheelhouse, right? Like, if you're gonna try to out mid-range me with like dumb, boring cards or like super combo-y cards, I'm gonna get a good percentage on that.
Yeah.
If the meta is more rock paper scissors, I'm not gonna be able to do that as much.
Yeah, but I want a meta in which I can actually sort of look at it and actually play the meta, right? Like, which you can't do here. Like, that's the thing. Like when I can, sort of craft the aggro deck that goes under people, like it makes me feel good. When people discover, it's like, oh man, I remember the first time that it's like a lot of the players discover it's like, I'm just gonna drop all twos, only pick threes.
Yeah.
Like we talk about it like it's common knowledge right now, but there was a time in which Collins and Shady were really pushing this, and then it's just like, okay, I don't need any twos. Like I'm just not drafting any twos. I only need powerful threes, and then everything starts from there. And people are like, whoa, that's insane.
Like that can't work. We've played twos for 3 years.
And then that's really cool. That's like really, really, really cool. And it allows for this like a lot of creativity. And then it pushes people in one way, and then it like hard pushes back, which was really not possible during this meta. It just really wasn't. So I am looking forward to that. Hopefully, once again, it's always sort of like meh, but looking forward to it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the meta preview. We're not gonna have another topic today. We started a little late, but thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Shout out to our patrons at patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. And another, if you're like trying to plan your schedule around our streams or something, so we have a whole bunch of 12-win videos that are going to come up And a lot of them are already up on YouTube. If you haven't checked it out, go check them out. We are actually not going to be streaming after next Sunday. So normally we cancel the Friday before a release. This time, kind of because it's Rise of the Mechs, and kind of because of some other stuff, we're canceling 2 streams. We're canceling that entire week. So on the 28th of July, so next week is normal. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. And on the 28th of Sunday, that is going to be the last arenas that we will play. And then on the 4th of August is the card valuation stream as normal. And Saviors of Oldham will launch on Tuesday, August 6th. And I will be doing a stream then. And we will be doing a stream. We'll get the schedule set up on our subreddit in the next few days, but I think we'll be streaming a lot of the days, if not all of the days, for the week after that.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know.
Yep. All right, great. Well, that's it for me. Until next time, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys.